Hello, everyone. Welcome to the BO on MMA podcast once again. And I'm going to move the microphone a little bit closer. That looks a little better. It looked like I was getting some low audio there, and hopefully that has been fixed. We are here to talk about UFC. You know it's at the Apex because it's goddamn awful. This weekend with 10 fights from the UFC Apex. Hang on, let me quickly refresh the page here. Maybe they've added an 11th fight? We still on 10? We're still on 10. All right, so 10 fight card. That's nice. Relatively short card, easy to miss, easy to have a real easy time for it. But like the main event is Marcin Tybura, who I like, versus Sergey Spivak, who I like. But it's a rematch of a fight that wasn't very good and probably still will not be very good. Also, to be honest, probably hasn't really changed much. Spoiler for my prediction on that one. I don't really think much has changed between the two fighters. I mean, I know it's been a couple of years, and I know that Marcin Tybura is like notably older. He's 38 now, but realistically speaking, I don't actually think that there's much of a difference in that fight. But okay, let's get into it. Quick note. Sorry, I just nudged a bowl that is on my desk. Quick note here about gambling. I'm going to talk about fight odds. I do bet on the fights. I am going to tell you who I think is going to win. But MMA betting is not a path to financial freedom. It is not something that you should be wagering anything you cannot afford to lose relatively easily on the fights. That's not something you should be doing. Please don't. Don't blame me if you lose like 50 grand, because that's your fault. Shouldn't have bet that to begin with. All right, let's talk about the fights. Marcin Tybura versus Sergey Spivak, heavyweight main event. Why are we doing heavyweight main events? Why are we doing rematches for main events of fights that were not very good? Anyways, I'm picking Tybura to win again because in the first fight, Tybura was able to largely just kind of smother Spivak. He was able to make Spivak defend his grappling as opposed to Spivak imposing grappling on an opponent, which is how Spivak generally wins. Tybura is, I think, the better grappler. I know the better striker because Spivak is a pretty bad striker, but he's gotten away with that because he can get takedowns against people who are not used to defending takedowns. And just realistically speaking, beating Marcin Tybura has had very, very, very little to do with your wrestling chops. In fact, I'm sure he's lost to Curtis Blades or something. Looking down here. Oh no, he is not lost to Curtis Blades. So basically, he's lost to like no wrestlers. He got knocked out by Tom Aspinall. He got outworked on the feet by Alexander Volkov. He got knocked out by Augusto Sakai. He got knocked out by Shamil Abdurrahimov. He got knocked out by Derek Lewis. I don't remember the Fabricio Verdum or Tim Johnson fights, but like, all right, let's take a quick look at UFC stats. Maybe we can put something together there. I didn't rewatch these fights preparing for this. Yeah, okay. Even Fabricio Verdum actually mostly just outstruck him. He went 1 for 7 on takedowns, outlanded him 179 to 137. Haven't watched the fight in a long time. Don't know, but apparently 5 round of kickboxing that Verdum won. There you go. And his fight with Timothy Johnson, which was his UFC debut, also had Johnson going for 0 takedowns, 0 for 0. Ended up with 3 minutes and 44 seconds of control time. I imagine that was in the clinch, or maybe he reversed Tybura at some point, but he didn't take him down. So, like, being a wrestler and being a takedown artist has not historically been the way to beat Tybura. There you go. If you want to grapple with him, he will probably beat you, unless you're Fabricio Verdum, who happens to also be able to outstrike him. There you go. I don't really have a lot more to break down on that, to be honest. I mean, like, yeah, we've seen Tybura lose twice since beating Spivak, but it's to Volkov and Aspinall. What part of either of those fighters does Spivak represent? There is, I suppose, a theory that Tybura is 38. The wheels just kind of fall off, and this is the perfect timing lightning strike for Spivak to get that win back. But I don't think so. I've got Tybura by TKO, hopefully, because I really don't want to see 25 minutes of this fight. I really, really, really don't. I really don't. but it could go the distance and it'd be a decision. I have no idea why the betting odds are what they are. Tybura is a plus 125 to plus 136 underdog, and Spivak is minus 150 to minus 172. That might be the most confusing betting line I've ever heard of. Like, cause it's not like this is literally a rematch, guys. This is literally a rematch of a fight that Marcin Tybura already won. And Spivak represents a challenge that basically never beats him. What are we doing? And 38 is not that old for heavyweight. This is heavyweight. Chepe Mariscal versus Damon Jackson. I want to put full disclosure on this one. I have not been right about a Chepe Mariscal fight yet. I thought he would be physically overpowered by Trevor Peek. He wasn't. I thought he would lose to Jack Jenkins fairly convincingly, to be honest, because Jack Jenkins is a pretty legit prospect, and I still want him to do bad things to people. And Mariscal won that fight. And then I had Morgan Charrier beating him because he's like a little too athletic, a little too slick, and to be honest, I think a lot of people still believe Charrier won that fight. I'm on the fence about it. I've watched it like a couple of times, and I've come up with different scorecards like a couple of times. It's a close fight. But yeah, Charrier lost because Charrier's, typical things. So I am 0-3 picking Mariscal fights in the UFC. So keep that in mind when I pick Damon Jackson here, because I am going to pick Damon Jackson here. Mariscal is a great action fighter. He's exciting. He's scrappy. He's scrambly. He's fairly well-rounded. There's no specific gap in his game that is horrible or whatever. And he's got a little bit of physicality to make things happen. He's not unathletic. The problem just is that everything I just said there kind of applies to Damon Jackson and just more. Jackson's a little bit more specialized to a top grappler scrambling game. His striking is momentarily good, but not in the overall sense all that good. So if Mariscal can stuff some takedowns early and just kind of take Jackson out of it, Jackson can be knocked out. He does have a chin that can be cracked. But it's historically by guys like Dan Ige, Ilya Topuria, Kevin Aguilar, Movlid Habalayev. These are athletes on a different level of Chepe Mariscal. They may not even be necessarily better strikers or even better fighters. Because, for example, I don't hold Kevin Aguilar in very high regard. It's just Aguilar beat Damon Jackson the way that Kevin Aguilar wins. He's a big power hitter. His game is otherwise very flawed. And I would probably pick Mariscal to beat him. But in this stylistic matchup, Jackson should have the durability to take some shots from Mariscal and should be able to impose his game, the takedowns, the scrambles, the top grappling, the control, to get the job done. Now, I don't really think Jackson has a way of finishing the fight, so it's always going to be on that knife's edge. It's just Mariscal doesn't look like the guys who beats him. Jackson feels like a fighter that we have seen Mariscal lose to, and that's basically about it. I'm not going to be surprised if Mariscal wins. I'm kind of at peace with the idea that I just don't have a grasp on it. He's far better than my brain is able to put together inside of me, and that makes it hard to pick his fights. But I'm going with Jackson. He is the underdog, plus 175 to plus 195. Chepe is minus 220 to minus 245. I could be wrong again. I'm picking Jackson by decision. Danny Barlow versus Nikolai Veretnikov. I have a hard time with long Russian names. I don't know why. It's a pretty simple fight. They're both big athletic dudes with powerful games. They're respectively 6'2", 79-inch reach, 6'1", 74-inch reach. At 170, they're used to being the longer man. They're both good athletes. They're explosive. They're fast. Veretnikov has a more well-rounded game because he has more of a takedown submission type style. He is, of course, a guy who has not really had a career that tells us a lot. He lost to Michael Morales in his Dana White Contender Series fight in a competitive fight, which suggests good things. But his best win is also Anthony Ivy. who, fought in the UFC, losing to Brian Barberena and Christian Aguilera, which, let's be honest, not a great sign, and also lost to Basil Hafez regionally. So he's not very good. And that's your best win. So I'm going to go with Danny Barlow. He's a taller guy. I think he's the better athlete. I think he's the harder hitter. Veretnikov is the more well-rounded fighter. Perhaps if he can make this into more of a MMA fight rather than just like a boxing fight, because realistically, that's what Barlow is good at. He is a pocket striker, boxer type guy, very athletic, very long, etc. But I don't think we've really seen much in the way of like what he can do as an MMA fighter. Veretnikov is coming in on short notice. I don't imagine he'll have the greatest game plan for him. I could see either of these guys catching the other, but I'm going to go with Barlow by TKO. He is minus 350 to minus 460. Veretnikov is plus 275 to plus 320. That might be a sleeper pick. Barlow is 1-0 in the UFC. He's not proven himself at a very high level. He doesn't have much of a better resume than Veretnikov himself, but he does feel like that's something special, that's something X factor, that's something very, very impressive physically that Veretnikov really just doesn't. Veretnikov just feels like kind of like a standard box of athleticism at 170 to make the UFC, whereas Barlow does feel like that actually something special. And if he wasn't 29 years old, I'd actually have a lot of hype for him in the future. The problem with him being 29 is he's got like 6 years to kind of make it happen, and he's got a lot of learning to do. I think I said the odds. Barlow minus 350 to minus 460. Veretnikov plus 275 to plus 320. Chris Gutierrez versus Kwong Lee. Now, this was supposed to be Chris Gutierrez versus, it was one of the Basharat brothers. Was it Farid or Javid? It was Javid. It was Javid Basharat. That, along with the loss of Alan Nascimento versus Jafal Filio, really hurt this card, I think. I've got to go with Gutierrez. It's not that I think Lee is bad. I mean, he's undefeated. He has the weird thing of like having lost his last 2 AM fights and then going pro. It's very weird. He looked like a standard kind of grinder, went right to the LFA stage as opposed to like going through like more regional productions, and has fought a decent level of competition as a result. Not a can crusher necessarily. He originally leaned on a heavy grappling game, but fancies himself more as a banger now. It wouldn't surprise me if he was quite good. I think his biggest issue is that he's probably 5 foot. He's 5'6" at 135, which is a little bit of a limitation factor. But there's no one he's beaten that in any way resembles Chris Gutierrez's neutralizing, low kick heavy, counter striking game. There's just, it's a stylistic matchup he hasn't faced much of. He's coming in on short notice and in the UFC. So I've got to go with Gutierrez. Like, it just kind of has to be that way. And it's the widest betting odds on the fight with minus 530 to minus 600 for Gutierrez, plus 360 to plus 425 for Lee. I'm going with Gutierrez by decision. He's not much of a finisher. I know he's recently had a couple of finishes that have like kind of made him into like this kind of knockout artist that I just don't think he really is. Specifically the famous knockout of Frankie Edgar, and also the spinning back fist and elbows on Denan Batgarel. But you have to realize that is 2/3 of his UFC finishes right there. And otherwise, it's a low kick stoppage of Vince Morales. So he's not really a finisher. It wouldn't stun me if he were to get a finish here, but I don't know. I'm just going to say that Lee could probably make it 15 minutes with him. Yana Santos versus Chelsea Chandler. Once upon a time, I was actually pretty excited for Chelsea Chandler to come into the UFC. She had like a decent grappling chops to her. She was very strong, very big. Like, she's legitimately like featherweight sized. Like, I actually think she's cutting too much weight to go down to 135, like safely. Like, I think that shouldn't be the case. And I think she agrees because she wanted to fight at 145 and the UFC just won't book her there. Which makes sense. They don't have that weight class. Realistically, it was just kind of I don't know. I do not know how to explain women's featherweight in the UFC. I just don't. But Then that Norma Dumont fight came around, and where she like literally turned and ran away from Norma Dumont. Not a great sign. Her striking is very, very, very undercooked. Her reactions as a striker also are very undercooked and very bad. Now, the problem for Yana Santos is that she tends to fight in a way that allows for the clinch to become part of the game. Even if you remember her fight with like Julia Stolyarenko back in the day, I remember, legitimately pondering taking Stolyarenko there because she's only good at one thing, but like Santos is going to do nothing to keep her away from that. And indeed, it would be like it was a large, prolonged clinch fest. It's just that Stolyarenko couldn't get her down. And Chandler is a much bigger and I think more capable takedown artist of the two. So I don't feel great about it. Santos has also lost 3 in a row, but I think I have to go with Santos. Like, she is strong. She is a good clinch fighter. She is somebody who can be in the clinch and not just instantly get taken down. And like I said, Chandler just has not good striking instincts and reactions and a bad striking game. So like every moment that this fight is on the feed, I think Santos will be winning. And it's not like she can't survive on the ground with Chandler. So I got to go with Santos by decision. She's the favorite, minus 138 to minus 156. Chandler plus 110 to plus 125. So we have feature prelim bout Charles Lampus Gregorio versus Toshio Kazama. Two guys who if I'm being honest, I don't believe are UFC caliber. And one of them is going to get a win, which to me is a little bit lame. But Gregorio has some nice power, some decent physicality. He has some striking ideas. He's with the Longo, formerly Sarah Longo, now Weidman Longo, fight camp. So presumably he'll be working on his grappling, which has historically been the weak point of his game. He has raw power and strength to weaponize the grappling as well as his power, but he does fade. His cardio is a bit weak, and hopefully that they can fix that. And he's up against Kazama, who is a decent grappler, nice variety of submissions, creativity, likes to be aggressive, but is also incredibly good, if that's the word, at getting hit exceptionally hard. Either that or he has just a glass chin and everything puts it down. He's lost 3 of his last 4 fights by knockout. That's kind of horrifying. Gregorio, like I said, has power. He's a bit one-dimensional, but hey, Kazama is also pretty one-dimensional. So Gregorio by TKO. I don't think either of these guys are long for the UFC. They're a little bit too old to develop into the fighters that maybe their physicality could be. But I don't know. I guess we'll see. Gregorio's minus 225 to minus 280. Kazama's plus 175 to plus 220. Karol Rosa versus Pani Kianzad. I have to go with Karol Rosa in this fight by decision. I've been frustrated by Rosa because she came in as this really high volume, significant striker with great cardio and an ability to just push a pace that people were not going to be able to keep up with. And then she stopped doing it. She did it for 3 of her first 4 fights and then stopped doing it. And I don't know what the deal is. She seems gun shy, concerned, not willing to open up in the same way. She can her cardio still is clearly there. Her fight with Irene Aldana, for example, she landed 204 strikes, 6 strikes of 350 thrown, which is insane. But it was because Aldana was forcing her to do it. She doesn't do it by nature anymore. It's just that even that kind of gun shy, a little bit unsure of herself version of Rosa is going to fight a style of fight that Kianzad just generally loses. Penny Kianzad's problem is that she's fundamentally not a finisher and fundamentally doesn't have any range tools to kind of set a fight up. Everything that wants to end up in the clinch is going to end up in the clinch. And when she fought Ketlin Vieira, Raquel Pennington, Macy Chiasson, that was a loss. And the only times it hasn't been a loss is when she fought the ghost of Lena Landsberg, who, keep in mind, she actually also has a loss to Alexis Davis, who's very, very undersized for 135, and the cardio-issued Sajara Eubanks, who has some significant issues with her weight cutting and just getting things sorted out. Don't know why, But yes, Sajara Eubanks, kind of like the great disappointment of women's bantamweight. So if you're going to end up in a clinch fight and a kind of a hugging affair, a grinding affair with Carol Hosa, and you aren't stronger than Carol Hosa, you're going to lose, and that's kind of all there is to it. I would love to see Carol Hosa come out and be the sort of like high volume prospect I was really hoping she would be. And she's only 29. It's not too late. Go for it. But she is probably going to win this by decision. She's a minus 200 to minus 218 favorite. Kianzad plus 162 to plus 180. Carl Williams versus Junta Diaz is a wrestler versus a kickboxer at heavyweight. I'm going to go with the wrestler. Williams is basically like the new version of Curtis Blades in the sense that he is not as good of a wrestler as Blades, not as good of a striker as Blades, but fundamentally he's the same thing. Like he's a powerful takedown artist that most people do not train for, do not encounter at heavyweight. And his boxing is explosive, but like doesn't really build into his wrestling in any way. Like they're two separate games. Deniz has never lost, so there is that chance, but he's never faced something like this. He could catch him. He is a decent kickboxer with some KO power. Williams, like I said, does not strike very well and has very hittable defense, but Williams taking him down over and over and over again is something I just don't foresee him being ready for. So Williams by decision, he's a minus 200 to minus 225 favorite, plus 163 to plus 175 on Deniz. Then we have Yarno Aarons versus Yusuf Zalal, two guys who are flawed in very different ways. Aarons is the guy who has all the dynamic physicality that you could really honestly hope for in a fighter. He's got decent counter timing. He's got good power. He's got some interesting submissions that he can utilize. He's strong. He's fast. All of that stuff. He just doesn't really have a game plan. Like his skill set is just very, very grab bag. I'm kind of actually legitimately morbidly interested in how like it came together to be a thing. Every time I see these like grab bag fighters that like have no real like game particularly, I'm just, how did you come to be? How did this happen? And it's bizarrely fascinating to me. But I also can't really pick it. Zalal is, I think, a little bit physically limited in the sense that outside of cardio and decent durability, I don't think he has dominant physicality or even good physicality for the UFC. Not particularly strong, not particularly fast, not particularly explosive. That's a problem, but like he has a good volume kickboxing game, partnered with aggression, partnered with pressure, partnered with takedowns, and it's a winning game formula just to do things like consistently and win round to round to round, even if you really don't have much of a finishing game and you're going to struggle against any like really good athlete in the division. And like Aarons is that good athlete, could catch him, could make him hurt, could hurt him, could sub him, could, club and sub. These are all on the table, but I'm going to go with Zalal by decision. He is a prohibitive favorite at minus 400 to minus 460. Second largest favorite on the card. Aarons is plus 300 to plus 350. Then we have a rematch that is interesting, but only like 10 months old. Stephanie Luciano versus Talita Alencar. They fought on Dana White Contender Series. If you're not familiar with the fight, it was a pretty good one. Alencar, I thought, won the first 2 rounds. The way a jiu-jitsu fighter generally does. She would get the takedown, she would have top control, and she would generally just kind of smother Luciano and do her best. Alencar is always going to struggle with the fact that she's 5'1", 58.5-inch reach. And realistically, what I'm saying is an atomweight and is an atomweight who predominantly is a grappler. So that is always going to be a problem. And then in the third round, Luciano just kind of like went for broke and started pouring on the offense, hurt her, even took her down and actually was the one on top for a good chunk of time. And if third round Luciano comes out the gate and in this fight, she's probably going to win because she's going to go out there and, enforce her physicality, that she has a 8-inch reach advantage, that she has a 5-inch height advantage, that she is reasonably sized for strawweight and she's fighting an atom weight, and just kind of be a bully because she's got good volume striking, good cardio, but she hasn't fought since Alencar. So it's like, what lessons did she take from the Alencar fight? And Alencar, we have seen fight. She beat, I'm doing air quotes, Ryan Dos Santos in her last fight, which I thought Dos Santos won very clearly. I want to say that was a robbery. But her striking did look better, and her cardio didn't fade nearly as badly. And she couldn't get takedowns against Ryan Dos Santos, even greater than she couldn't get them against Luciano. For the record, I think she was, let's see here. Let's pull up the numbers if you please. UFC stats to the rescue. Toledo Alencar. Yeah, here we go. Alencar against Luciano went 4 for 24 on takedowns. That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. It's very bad. Admittedly, I think the third round makes that a lot worse because she went 0 for 10 in the third round. But like she went 2 for 9 in the second round, 2 for 5 in the first round. Luciano could stop some takedowns. And in the other fight she had against Ryan Amanda Dos Santos, I should say. Let's see here. Yeah, 1 for 9. She got 1 takedown in the second round, turned it into 2 minutes of top control. Other than that, could not do jack. I'm looking at these stats and I have no idea how Alencar won this fight. Like, she clearly lost the first round, going 0 for 3 and getting outstruck 34-13. And the second round, she got 1 takedown for 2 minutes of top control, no real submissions, whatever. I guess she wins the round. She outstruck Dos Santos 16-10 in significant strikes, but it was overall outstruck 32-25. I have no problem with that round going to her. But then the third round, she again couldn't get a takedown, got outstruck. I don't know. Anyways, I'm making myself angry on that. I don't know who's going to win because, I mean, it really depends. Like, did Luciano learn her lesson about, like, just take the front foot and bully? You can stop the takedowns. You can hang on the ground and you can get this job done. Or does she allow Alencar to just kind of stick around? So, you know what I'm going to do? I don't have a pick on this one. I've done this before. I've got a dice here, little gold and green dice. If it comes up even, we're going Luciano. If it comes up odd, we're going Alencar. It is a 6. So we're going Luciano. I'm going to say by decision. Alencar seems to be like fairly durable. I'm going to write that down in my notes here. And yeah, I'm just going to say that like Luciano learns from like the third round of her fight and realizes that she can just kind of, she probably can't kill Alencar. The third round kind of proved that, but she can go out there and just kind of big sister her, kind of bully her. Anyways, Luciano by decision. She's minus 160 to minus 175. Alencar plus 132 to plus 142. Alencar is on the exceptionally long list of people who I really wish they just had an atomweight division for, because it would be fun. Speaking of which, Tabitha Reach is going to fight Angela Hill, talking about the queen of a potential atomweight division that the UFC is just not letting happen. Anyway, I don't know why. Atomweight is easily like as deep as, say, flyweight during a lot of its history. It's easily deeper than bantamweight is right now. So I don't really understand. I guess it would take away from the strawweight depth. That would be the downside, I guess. But strawweight's doing well. Pretty much every crop of like contender series is bringing up a decent strawweight. So this might be one of the shorter podcasts I've had. I'm going to finish off with, all right, here we go. I'm going to get political. If you don't want to hear that, you don't want to hear about the Olympics, please feel free to turn off now. If you're still with me, here we go. There are 2 boxers at the Olympic Games, Imane Khelif of Algeria and Lin Yu-ting of Taiwan. They're both in the gold medal fight at their respective weight classes. But here's the thing. The controversy is essentially that the IBA, the International Boxing Association, claims that they are not XX chromosomes, and their president keeps bringing up testosterone, although their chief executive officer, who oversees the whole like testing aspects of it, repetitively says it's not a testosterone issue. So make of that what you will. But they are apparently not XX chromosome. This has led to people calling them men, of course, and bringing up women beating up men. Now, to be clear about both of these boxers, they have had good careers. Certainly, I mean they're in the gold medal games here in 2024 at the Olympics. I mean that's not nothing. I'm not going to sugarcoat and be like, oh no, they're just totally average boxers. No, they are good boxers. But what they do, if you watch them fight, and heck, even if you just review their records, is not kill people. Lynn has, I think, 1 stoppage win, and I believe Khelif has like 6 or 7. They have over a combined 100 fights in international amateur boxing. They have lost something like 22 times, I want to say. Hang on. Got the records up here. Yeah, Lynn is part. Okay, Lynn's is wrong here. Wikipedia has her at 19-5. She's got more fights than that. Let's see if BoxRec, can you help me out? Yeah, there it is. 45-14 with 1 KO / TKO. And for Khelif, 44-9 with 6 TKOs. And I think they're not counting her weird knockout quotation mark at the Olympics against Angela Carini of Italy, who basically felt 2 punches from her and then quit and said something about like, I have never been hit so hard in my face. I think my nose is broken. There is no indication she even broke her nose. And I refuse to believe that, like, if your nose is not broken, that is the hardest punch you've eaten, because what amateur boxer doesn't break their nose at some point? It's just an occupational hazard. Anyways, the whole issue here is that the IBA is corrupt as all heck. If you listen to me, you know that like sanctioning bodies in combat sports are generally speaking run by like really quite poor people. And I don't mean financially poor. I want to make that clear. I mean moral character poor. And realistically, nothing that they say should be taken at face value. They lost the Olympic boxing sanctioning back in 2019. They have been in a war of words with the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, basically ever since. They disqualified these 2 ladies from winning medals at the 2023 IBA World Championships, which allowed Eastern European / former Soviet countries to pick up medals. As a result, they are Russian run. They are generally favoritive towards the former Warsaw Pact and the former Soviet Union. So countries like Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, which got medals because of the disqualification of, I think it was Khelif, obvious pathway to like what that is. Also, to be clear, they both apparently failed in 2022 and the IBA didn't do anything. So I'm not going to tell you what's going on here. It is possible both of these boxers have a DSD condition, which maybe should preclude them from competition. I do have that belief that, like, unfortunately, if you have a DSD that leads to male development, exceptionally high levels of testosterone based on a female scale, then yes, there is a possibility that you should not be able to compete in sport. But I think people lose any semblance of credibility that this is about sport when they get into the no. We also got to call them a man. No. I can't use female pronouns. No. Even though they live in countries that, realistically speaking, probably would not accept them as men, particularly Algeria in the case of Khelif, we need to call them men. We need to make this a moral outrage thing. We need to make this worse. And also, the people that are talking about this are like really horrified by like a boxer getting hit in the face. It's boxing. And they also clearly don't know them because like I've seen so much discussion about this being like they're going to kill someone. And serious injury can obviously happen in boxing anytime there's a boxing match. That is the risk you run. But again, I have to emphasize this. We have 2 fighters here that, again, have a combined 7 fight stoppages in 89 wins, 7 stoppages, 82 decisions. And we are supposed to believe that somebody is going to be seriously hurt beyond the standard risks that boxing provides. All right. I got that done. Probably to an incredibly small audience. Whatever. That's my politics. If you want my bottom line is I believe that there probably is something that this should lead to, which is gender criteria at the Olympics. That being said, it has been blown ridiculously out of proportion, and people are trusting the IBA, which is something I would never recommend be done. And people are like coming back and be like, "Oh, you trust the IOC?" No, I specifically trust neither. Down below, you'll find links to my social medias, my video gaming stuff, the Discord fight simulator, and actually, I really actually should probably ask Jesse and Zane, our two resident amateur boxers, over on the Discord to come on for like a discussion of this. It might be interesting because I think both of them are kind of like largely with me, but might be able to give us more of like a boxing centric analysis. Anyways, I will talk to you guys after the fights.